Hello, everyone. Welcome to the podcast Real Talk with Sudhanya. And I'm your host, Sudhanya. In this podcast, we meet people who are courageous and dare to leave their comfort zone to serve a bigger purpose. And that's what my today's guest did. My guest, Josta Kolkman, has a solid foundation as a mindfulness and self compassion trainer. She facilitates training, masterclasses, and workshops in the field of personal development and spiritual since 2016. Her own research into a happier and simpler life and taking better care of herself, her environment, and our beautiful planet helped Yosta encounter and learn from various inspiring teachers and wisdoms of life to the path she now walks and teaches. Yosta has a degree in hospitality and a career background in hotels and finance. In 2019, she left her corporate job to become a full time entrepreneur, a journey that has been exciting and nourishing for her, but also confrontational and difficult at times. She uses her 15 plus years of international working experience to connect the softer side with the harder side of business. She's a certified mindfulness trainer with delivery experience in corporate, multinational, as well as nonprofit environments. Yosta also works as a systemic focused team coach in the workplace. In her current work for the general public, she facilitates ceremonies with heart opening and gentle but strengthening medicine of cacao and the resonance of sound, and also shares her wisdom from shamanism and Jung's shadow work. When not working, she enjoys being outside in nature, swimming in open water all around here, sweat lodges, visiting spa saunas regularly, and celebrating life with music, vegetarian food, art house movies, and traveling with friends and family. I had such a centering experience speaking with Yosta, and I hope you also do. So come and join me and have fun. So, yeah, thank you so much for joining. And I'm so excited to have you that we are going to talk about something very, I think, offbeat, something that is not that popularly discussed, but that's what the whole podcast is about, real talks,
Yeah.
to have deep dive conversations. And that's why there are no time limits. So we can take our time. Enjoy the tea, by the way.
Thank you.
And let's get down to some topics. Um, I wanted to start a bit about, if you can tell me something about your childhood.
My childhood.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, it's interesting that you bring this up. I'll reference a little later why I'm saying this, but I grew up in the north of the Netherlands, and in a village. I was born in the province of Groningen, and I remember having a very carefree. Is it carefree childhood?
Yeah.
Very quiet. It's funny when I think about that part of my life. It feels sunny and free and playful and yeah. And I have an older brother and sister. The brother is the oldest one. Sister is the middle one.
Mm-hmm.
And my two parents, obviously. And we had cats from when I was pretty young. So we've had pets for most of my childhood, which I think is a great.
You're a cat person.
I'm a cat person, definitely. An animal person overall, but definitely cats more than dogs.
Yeah, very curious.
Yeah, and rebellious and
rebellious
and quirky. Yeah.
Yeah.
And when I was 7, we moved to another province, Friesland. It's called just on the border of the province where we were living at the time, and we moved to a city, so busier, more people, more difficult to find your way, I would say, overall speaking. And I thought it was interesting that you mentioned this, because I read an article this weekend about people who have moved to a different country when they were young, and who are research is showing that they are usually struggling with identity crisis,
Right.
because they don't really know where they belong. And I reflected on that, thinking I actually have a similar issue, because I always say I'm from the north, because I don't know exactly where I'm from. I lived for 7 years on one side of the north, and then 10 years or
Friesland.
yeah,
Which is like the other side of North
yeah,
Netherlands.
and there's rivalry as well between the two provinces or states. So it's like, wow, my childhood was good, but I had identity crisis.
Yeah, so like what in your personality you have taken from both the Norths, and what you don't like about each of the Norths?
Great question. The overall characteristic of the North, I would say, is, and it's similar in many countries across the world, is Northern people are more what's the word, sturdy, or like more robust. They're very to themselves, and they're really, in a way, proud of of just being their own people.
Right.
I always picture Vikings, for example, when I think about people of the North who are like rah. It's very, I don't know.
And do you have that in your personality? Because from what I have seen you are very like calm and inner peace catalyst, and that's the vibe actually you gave. I was so calm today, like knowing that you're coming, and that's the vibe you give. So do you relate with that North Viking vibes?
I do. There's definitely,
Cool.
there's this part of me that can feel very empowered and very strong, and Viking like and rebellious. And I'm just doing it my way. I don't care. But there's definitely also another part of me that is not like that at all, and that is very calm, very shy as well, very much trying to find her way in a big world. And so that's also something that that I felt I related to that northernness, but I also felt different in a way.
Duality.
Yeah.
Well, so this belongs to Groningen.
And Friesland,
And
both
Friesland,
actually.
both.
Yeah.
So that's the similarity that
that's
both have.
Yeah.
Okay. And what are they rival about? And that's what you see in your personality also.
To me, the rivalry is very much about they are accusing each other of the same thing. So they're accusing the other of being farmers and, being dumb. But they say the same thing about each other. So
there is a judgment around that farming being a low society job.
Low society people.
It's very interesting because, like, I know Netherlands is also very agriculture-based country, and I come from India, and there also it's very much like normal that farmers are treated as low low qualified, whereas like it's funny that we both the countries are an agriculture based countries, like our economies are
Yeah.
driven by it,
Yeah.
and we have less respect, and hence uh like being a hypocrite, me myself, I opted to get into a more intellectual lane rather than agriculture. Like, well, in my family nobody did. Like, we come from a like family of engineers, but like,
Yeah.
yeah, like in my mindset also, it's so I can relate to what you're saying.
Yeah.
So what do you think? Are you like a soil person, connected to nature, or like?
I am very much. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even though it was the norm to look down upon farmer life,
Yeah.
now that I'm older,
Mm.
maybe I'm even idealizing it. It sounds like a great way to live, to be able to cultivate the soil and to have animals and just live with the
Mm.
seasons.
Mm.
Yeah,
So do you
I,
stay more grounded to the nature now than before, than you had your city days?
yeah, definitely. Yeah, I've always been a nature lover, but I definitely had my years that I was very disconnected
Mm.
from the natural surroundings. And now, a few years ago, I made a decision to have like a second home,
Mm.
which is more like a caravan or a trailer, in a very foresty area not far from here.
Mm.
Um, and I'm there a couple days a week from March until October. And it's been incredible how much it has changed my way of life. And so I don't know if it's a coincidence or if there was the one thing affecting the other, but it doesn't seem like a coincidence that when I got the caravan,
Mm-hmm.
I also changed careers not long after.
Mm. That's a good bridge to
Yeah.
our next topic, which is pretty interesting. I know from, I saw your LinkedIn, and also we spoke before. Um, And Nicolin recommended me your name because she told me that you used to work in EY, like a corporate job, full-fledged, and now you are a mindfulness coach, entrepreneur, and I love your title, which is Inner Peace Catalyst. So I want to really deep dive into what is Inner Peace Catalyst. But before that, I work in the corporate. Like, some call it golden cage, some call it financial stability, some call it fun, and it's like, it has its both pros and cons. So I'm not going to right away start with, like, it's like, you have to find your own place.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, I have realized that it's a bubble of its own. Like, if you start identifying with that corporate lifestyle, is makes you also more and more disconnected to yourself. Like, that's my personal feeling, and
Yeah.
why I can that's why I found it very interesting to have this conversation. So thank you.
Hmm.
So I wanted to start with, you had a corporate job. What did you like about that? And slowly tell me what happened in the course of life that you took such a big step.
Yeah. What I loved about it was definitely the enormous amount of possibilities that I had. I've had quite a few different roles in EY. They were all part of learning and development, but it was almost like I was able to craft my own career path, which really suits me. I don't do it very consciously, I think, but I've always been kind of a pioneer. Maybe it's the Viking thing.
Now I can relate.
Yeah. So, and once I got, bored, so to say, I never really got bored, but when I was ready for something else, was always something that I could do to change my perspective in my roles and my tasks. I really loved the possibilities to travel. I worked for about 12 years at EY in the from my third year onwards. It was in an international environment, and I traveled a lot throughout Europe, and also had some really amazing experiences a little further away. Yeah, and what I realized last week when I was back at EY to give a mindfulness masterclass or workshop is how much I loved the people as well. Of course, there were the odd people I didn't get along with. It would be weird if that wasn't the case. But I saw so many familiar faces, and it felt like I had seen them yesterday. And I had so many deep connections with so many people that, of so many different cultures and backgrounds. That was really enriching.
Right, like actually these corporate setups give you that, platform, like the fact that I'm here right back from east of India to here in front of you in Zeist. Like you would think like, oh, she must be in Amsterdam, but like it's a very hardcore, like for my audiences, it's like a Dutch city.
Yeah.
And it is only possible because of that setup. So indeed, like bringing so much of diversity in the world is something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very true. Yeah. And of course, I mean, speaking of golden cages, it was also very financially attractive to work for such a big company with, in terms of salary, lease car, bonuses, lots of vacation days and things like that.
Right.
So, yeah.
So, like turning to the word cage, let's go to the other side. What made you slowly start? Because you told that you worked for 12 years, which is like you already are in a path. You are an expert, for example, in learning and development, and you were like exploring different opportunities. So you are already an expert in your life, and you know that the rest of your life you're just going to build on that. What made you slowly retract? I don't know, it's slow or maybe sudden. I have no idea, by the way.
It was definitely slow because although I felt very at home and I got along with very well with so many people, I also from the beginning maybe, or from early on, I felt that maybe in terms of mindset and approach to life and priorities in life, I didn't fit in as well as I thought other people were fitting in. Of course, that's a matter of perception. It might be the case that nobody feels like they fit in, but...
So what was that? Like, what was that purpose that you did not fit in?
So I told you I've always been very big fan of nature. I've been sponsoring organizations like Greenpeace, for example, and some other local environmental agencies for however long I can remember. Definitely since I moved out of my parents' house, I started donating money. And I had a perspective that this wasn't a match with the focus of EY.
Okay.
And it wasn't only the environmental part. At some point, I felt like there is more that can be done in terms of mental health as well, and vitality, etc. And I'm noticing that I'm finding it quite... I'm struggling a bit to talk about this because I don't want to give the perception to some of my former colleagues that I've not been valuing their work in the areas of vitality or sustainability. Right. But I always had this sense of I'm working for this financial giant, and if I was running this company, I would stop supporting any of the global polluters in the world, and right. I would radically change the direction of the company. And at the same time, I realized I'm expecting this company to move mountains, but right. It's impossible in the structure that they are operating in and in the way that the world works. Right. But there's a rational understanding of it is the way it is, but then there's also how you feel on a day-to-day basis. And looking back at it now, I can see that what I've been doing there in terms of environmental awareness or mental health awareness and mindfulness training, it was like I have been planting seeds. Right. But I was expecting the seeds to explode. Pop out and give flowers, right? And right away, yeah. And that takes time. And that's what I'm seeing now, actually. And of course, I'm not inside of the company anymore, so I don't know how it really is. But what I'm seeing through my former colleagues is that there is a lot more emphasis now on the topics that were so important to me then. Yeah, like being introspective and also caring about the environment, the world. Yeah. Than just making money. Exactly. Yeah. And in fact, they are hiring you as a mindfulness coach, which means that they're mindful about something that what you feel like it's not enough. And that's when you what was that nail in the coffin that made you decide that okay, now I'm going to leave and be independent? By the way, how long have you been an entrepreneur, an independent, or how long have you left the corporate? So I think I officially started my company on the 1st of January 2017. But I didn't really do anything big yet. Right. Just supporting some. You just put the seed. Yeah, exactly. Putting the seed in the ground and watering from time to time. And I left EY in my corporate role in the summer of 2019. Okay. And I was then contracted as a freelancer for 2 days a week for another year. And alongside that, I launched my company as well. So I have done some small work from 2017 until then. But summer 2019, it was full on entrepreneur. Right. Yeah. So what happened in spring 2019 that made you okay, summer 2019, I'm full-time? What do you remember? What was that? It was actually, and this was also a slightly slow process, but I was working on a new project, which was at in the autumn of 2018, I think. Yeah. I had told my team leader at the time, I am bored. Not in these words, but I said I was looking for some new challenges, and I felt like I wasn't using my talents or utilizing my talents the way was most beneficial for me and for the company. And she put me on a project which was a fantastic project. It was a partner training in Ireland, if I remember correctly. Big event, multiple days. And they paired me with a senior manager that was a very corporate, very demanding, full-on type of superwoman.
So just the opposite of your core personality.
Very opposite, yeah. We had worked before actually, but I think I was already changing so much in those years as I was already practicing mindfulness after the previous time we worked together. So, and this time it was too much for me, and I tried to do the job to manage the project, the part of the project that I was supposed to manage, but I felt the demand was too high, and I couldn't really manage the juggling anymore of all the different responsibilities. And I remember one day, it was in October with the Amsterdam dance event, and I was hired to give a 15-minute mindfulness taster to a group of students from a media and entertainment university, something like that. And so I had taken the morning off from work, which was difficult, but I did it anyway. And then I arrived at the place where I thought I was supposed to be. And I was at a completely different venue than where I was supposed to be, at the other end of Amsterdam. And it was for me the moment where I realized, wow, I'm usually so organized and everything goes exactly according to plan, and suddenly I'm in the wrong place.
The juggling is not working.
I cannot fix it anymore. I was already going to be almost late anyway. So I just broke down and realized it's too much. I've been juggling too much. And so I called my Dutch, my manager was British, and I called my Dutch HR person and said, I need some time off. I don't think I have a burnout, but there's definitely something going wrong. And so I took some time off. I had already planned a trip with my partner at the time to go to India for a month, coincidentally.
Yes.
So the company doctor, which is the system that we have here in the Netherlands, where there is like a doctor affiliated to a company for when you get burnout, or even when you break your ankle, like I did many years ago. And I spoke to this doctor, and he recommended that I took 3 months off, go to India.
Okay.
For a month, and then after 3 months go back and see how my energy levels were, and how my outlook on coming back into the team that I was in, how that was looking for me.
Right.
And so I came back after those 3 months, and pretty soon we realized, it was in a conversation between me and the company doctor and the HR person in the Netherlands, that it was not a good idea for me to return to my old team, to my old project.
Yeah.
I think the event was already finished anyway, so that the project was gone. So we started thinking, like, what would be the best option for all of us. So for EY, for me, those were the two parties actually. And for quite some time so this was then the spring of 2000. This was spring 2018.
Right.
So it was actually 2017 that I called in sick. So for almost all of 2018, we tried to work out where I would fit in the company.
Yeah.
And I did work in the meantime. I slowly went back to work, and it was after the summer that year that I went back full time, roughly, doing different things for different teams. So just helping out here and there, like I was an intern, for example. And then what happened in the end is that there was something that we all thought would fit me, which was a team coaching team that was being shaped in that in that year. And after having lots of conversations, we decided mutually that it would be better for me and for my future perspective as well to not go there as an FTE in that team, but to take that job as a freelancer.
Right.
And so that's what I did that year. And that's why my contract was terminated and I became a full-time entrepreneur. So it was really different circumstances leading to this decision.
It was like not a sudden, it was like you tried to fit in.
Yeah.
And there was no like fit that would fit your future self. And like as you were saying your story, it made me realize that like you have always been in mindfulness, always been in like teaching, even in while you were in EY, while you were in your corporate job. You were already giving these mindfulness coaching trainings, taste of in these events, which means like you were like trying your best to be connected to yourself. And that makes me realize that although we talk about emotions, being connected to ourselves, about all like the soft side of us, still we are not immune to what life has to bring us, like all the ultimate realization. Even if you practice mindfulness, that doesn't make you immune to burnouts.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like that's like for example, I give workshops. I have a completely data job, like I work in a completely tech job, but also I had certain realizations and I felt it's very important to be aware of my emotions. And I give emotional intelligence workshops for corporate. But then certain, like I have realized that people think that I'm immune to emotions, or I'm very emotionally intelligent, or like, I can tackle everything. But that's what I try to say, like, no, like it doesn't make you immune to sadness. It doesn't make you immune to depression. It doesn't make you immune to anything. You just need to be aware of it.
Yeah.
And the more you're aware of it, you can know the immediate next step. But that doesn't mean that, you've found enlightenment. I don't know how it feels.
Yeah, no, I can so relate to that. And
Yeah.
At the time, I did judge myself for it. Yeah. I started teaching mindfulness in 2016. So I'd been teaching for over a year when I had my near burnout.
Yeah.
And I really felt, because I think it was my being inexperienced in a way still.
Right.
I really blamed myself. Like, wow, how can I set the example here when I'm
the expert?
Yeah, I'm the expert. I should be stress-free.
Yeah.
But it's definitely not like that, and it helped me to realize that as well. And I'm thankful now as well, because imagine, I mean, the best way to teach something is to have lived it, right?
Experience it.
Yeah. It's like if you want to become a painter, for example, and you get a carpenter to teach you how to paint, or you get a data analyst or an HR professional to teach you how to paint. It's not as good, right?
Yeah, it's not as good. Or like, yeah, you can teach, but unless you do it, unless you go through it, and at some point you need to start somewhere. And that's where I constantly feel like it's very important to make people aware also, that, and also myself. I think I do it for myself. I try to be real to myself, and hence the podcast. And like, it doesn't make you immune to like future challenges,
No.
right? Like what life has to bring. We can just try, and these are so subtle. In fact, so much judged elements, right? Like that's what I wanted to talk about also. That especially mindfulness is still a bit acceptable word right now in the world, but the moment you bring words like spirituality, meditation, you know, especially in the Western world, so that's why I'm like really respectful that I know how challenging it is for you. I know, I can see that. And it is very much judged, terms in the world. And still, you're going back to that corporate and teaching them mindfulness. And you know that maybe out of 100 who are joining, maybe 50%, I think I'm quoting very less, by the way, that they are judging you like, oh, what's this woo woo stuff?
Yeah.
So how do you deal those emotions? Because here you are to teach others how to handle their emotions or handle their mind, but at the same time you are in this, this danger zone where you know that everybody's judging you. That's because they are like, especially the corporate world is hyper analytical and science based, and you're going out there and tell that, oh, don't understand logic, like try to look into your emotions. You are yourself putting yourself in so much of a kind of judgmental zone purposely. How do you deal with that?
Yeah. Well, I have felt very supported actually all those years. I've always had very close colleagues, many of them who are still friends, who have always expressed how much they value my perspective and how much they value the calm and the peace that I bring into the organization. So that's been incredibly helpful. And what's interesting is when I gave my workshop last week, I did a round of hands of people who were skeptical about mindfulness, and there was no hand up in the air, and that was the first time. I've been at this event teaching mindfulness for 6 years, I think. It's the tax and law department of EY, Belgium and the Netherlands. And all those other years, there was always at least one. In the first few years, there were quite a few.
And how would you handle that?
I would say I relate because I come from a family situation where I have a very spiritual father who went onto the spiritual path when he got his burnout when I was about, I can't remember very well, but I think maybe 15 or 16. And he's done some stuff that I at the time thought was too woo-woo to ever discuss with anyone.
Okay.
Like crop circle experiences and ayahuasca, Peruvian medicine, things like that. But also my mother is very skeptical and very she trusts science a lot, so very analytical. So I understand both sides. So I could always relate both to the people who were interested in this, but also to the people who thought, what kind of BS is this? What am I doing here? And although I strongly believe that anybody can benefit from mindfulness, or everybody benefits from mindfulness, some people just aren't ready yet.
No.
Yeah.
And that's something that can you like take that away from like judging yourself, like, oh, what do people think of me? Or like maybe you become shy or less confident when there is one hand up or when there are two hands up. Does that affect your confidence?
Not so much anymore, but it has definitely in the beginning. it was even, and what I learned over the years is it was mostly the insecurity or the insecure feelings that I already had that were triggered. But I would get insecure just by the way people would look at me, or their nonverbal language, their physical posture. But over the years, so many times I realized I was making assumptions, and I would think, oh, this person really hates my workshop because he or she is looking at me like this. And then suddenly they would ask a question that would show me that they were very engaged, and they were maybe just thinking about something, or so yeah, that's really helped me. And it helped me a lot that I've also been learning about shadow work and about projections. So that's what I was doing. I was projecting my own insecurity onto this person
and judging
and making an assumption of how they were judging me, which they weren't, or maybe they were, but yeah.
Okay. Very interesting. I can like relate so many things. Like, just maybe we would have some skeptic audiences, right?
Yeah.
So they are wondering what's mindfulness, because there are different perspectives from different people. So let's discuss a bit about these jargons: mindfulness, shadow work, projections. Like I just want to know also your perspective around these. Like, I know you specialize in it and give workshops. So for the workshop, you have to like attend her real workshop, but like she's going to give a small, bite of what is mindfulness. If you want.
Yeah, and this is where I always start to struggle, because mindfulness is so simple and yet so complex to explain. But it's the way that I explain, or the way I teach it in the corporate world, is it's very scientific. So it's attention training. You learn to train your attention. You train your brain to be attentive to the present moment. So you're learning to be in the here and now. And you're not learning to be in the here and now just for the sake of being there, but you're learning your attitude. You're learning about your attitude in the here and now. So how am I now? So it's about emotions as well. What emotions are present? What thoughts are present in the here and now that are affecting my relation to the here and now? So you're learning to be more present with yourself and more present with others, and in that way, learning to, I guess, handle situations in a better way.
Like optimize your energy. Like that's the like corporate jargon. If you want to like optimize your energy and productivity, you should do mindfulness. So that's the corporate language. What is it for you?
For me, it's really this. It's being much more connected to yourself, making choices that are helpful for you, and improving your relationships.
Like, wow, like, so you feel much more connected compared to yesterday, compared to 2019 summer to now?
Every day more connected.
Wow, that's beautiful.
And definitely more connected to before I was practicing mindfulness.
I totally agree with you that for me also it's about awareness, like, and not judging the present. And Still I do all the time, but like also being the third person observer of it as
Yeah.
well, of that. And it requires some serious focus, and hence it's much more easier to do like, the outside stuff, because then it's easier to code something. It's easier to go out there and do tough tasks out there. But like it's much more challenging to like be there with your thoughts, with your emotions, idea, without a drink, without water, with air,
Mm-hmm.
breath. That's the only thing. And maybe that moment you find not like no big output or like profit, but in the bigger run I found that, like what you said, like more and more connected to myself. I still don't feel like I'm 100% connected to myself all the time, by the way.
Mm.
But it's a very deep sense of knowing that I'm not this body, neither this mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
that. And
Beautiful. So the other two jargons, shadow work
yeah.
and projection.
Yeah. Shadow work is a term I think that was um, coined by Carl Jung, a psychiatrist from Switzerland who lived in the 19th century, I believe, maybe part of the 20th. I'm I always forget the details. And what it means essentially is that, so when you are growing up as a child, your authority figures, they have this idea of how you should behave and what you should say and do. And this, they reward you or they punish you according to this idea that they have. So certain behavior is punished. And this is not the same for everyone, although there are collective shadows as well. But it depends on how your parents or other authority figures look at what's good behavior and what's not. And as a child, because you depend on these people, you incorporate these beliefs into what is good behavior and what is not. And the bad behavior, it is said, it goes into your shadow. It becomes a blind spot. And for example, a shadow for it's actually a collective shadow, but it's anger, for example. Both little boys and little girls are usually punished for being angry, girls even more so than boys. And so you, as a child, you create this belief it's bad to be angry, and it becomes a blind spot, and you convince yourself that you are never angry.
Yeah.
And because your ego or whatever you call it, convinces itself that you are the nicest person on the planet, and etc. And so anger, you believe that you're never angry, and when other people get angry, you get triggered by it because it's your own blind spot and your own shadow. And until you see that you can get angry as well, this shadow can be really in the way of your relationships or with yourself or with others or with your colleagues, for example. So that's what shadow work is. You try to distinguish, like, what kind of behaviors or characteristics have I placed into my shadow as a child, and how is that affecting my functioning in life.
Right.
maybe it still sounds a bit abstract, but
Like, yeah, I do get, and like, just to challenge the stuff, like the whole topic of anger, because I think that's also my blind spot, part of the collective, so I can
yeah,
relate with it. But yeah, so as a child, we, especially like you really rightly mentioned, like I thought that happens only in India, but like thanks, it happens all throughout the world, also in the Netherlands.
yeah,
It's really good to know. So it's a collective shadow, and like voicing out your words or being angry, pissed off, crying out loud was is very much looked down upon, and you are almost like
yeah.
you are like people like your people around you get angry on you for being angry, which is very funny. Right?
Yeah,
So, and hence you're taught to not be angry and always be polite and kind, and you develop into this people pleaser.
yeah,
At the same time, some people still can't control the anger, and it can be very destructive, right? Because of your anger you can harm a relationship, and like physically, mentally, emotionally, like you can abuse people also. So
yeah,
what do you do? Because yeah, you should not control your anger, but at the same time, if you let go and just like think that okay, I'm the only person in the world and I can do whatever I want and I can shout at people, is also something, another kind of blind spot, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Well, this is a big topic. We could have a whole podcast about
Only on
this.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe I wouldn't be the number one person to answer this because I struggle with anger as well.
Okay. Me too.
I used to do a lot of kickboxing, and it was a great way to vent this anger. But generally, I think, or I have convinced myself that I don't feel a lot of anger, or that whenever it's present, it's very quick and then it dissolves. So, and I guess in a way I don't believe myself when I say that, because I see so many angry persons and so much anger around me that I think that I should have much more anger inside of me than I am allowing myself to see. So I don't know.
Yeah, like, and also sometimes we become this self-righteous person that like, oh, you know, people around me get angry and I don't get, so I'm a better person.
Yeah, exactly.
So, which is also like, yeah, like this is like opposite of projection, like kind of another, right?
Yeah,
Like you assume people that others are angry, so they are not doing enough of the work and enough of the,
yeah,
you know, they're not enough mindful.
yeah, yeah,
And since I am mindful, I'll not be angry. That's
yeah,
actually a blind spot.
yeah,
As I speak, I realize I'm like, yeah, okay, I do that many times, and uh, especially and I don't know, and maybe that's why I'm putting out this topic, that like how do we deal with it? But that's a like very specific topic as
yeah,
well.
yeah.
But like coming to your like a bit more broader, now you are an inner peace catalyst who feels
Yes.
angry sometimes and just quickly goes away. So tell me more about the inner peace catalyst.
Yeah. Well, it's a term that I started using last year, I think.
Yeah.
And I just love having this title, especially because I have struggled so many years with what is actually my biggest talent.
Yeah.
And that's this. An inner peace catalyst means to me that I'm a person who can very naturally make people feel at ease. And it's feedback that I've continuously received throughout my whole career, and from my friends as well, is that whenever they're around me, they feel like they don't have to pretend, and they can let their guard down, and that I fully accept them as who they are. And it's very it puzzles me sometimes because I still don't fully accept myself for who I am.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm very close, much more so than many years. But I've come to the conclusion that for so many years, I wanted to be accepted so badly for being me that naturally I made other people feel accepted and at ease, because then I would feel the same thing.
Right. Like you wanted to give that what you wanted to
Yeah.
experience yourself.
Yeah.
So you gave you basically, like I told you, I feel so much at ease, like like knowing that you are here. And when I was like the last week working and reading your from your website to LinkedIn, I had this whole sense of like I became calmer and calmer and calmer. So I can truly vouch for what you're saying.
Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe one of my more northernly characteristics is also I'm not a 100% introvert, but an introverted person. And for much of my puberty and young adult years, I've always felt like I was too slow and too quiet and too calm, and that all my friends were much more extroverted and outgoing and sociable. And I've really hated myself for it. I always wanted to be, more witty and
Smart, accepted. Yeah.
yeah, like this super hyper version of myself. Um, and maybe hate is a big, well, of course, in puberty I did hate myself for this, and I had to turn 30 plus to realize that these characteristics were actually my talent. And by being slower and by being, more introverted, taking time to reflect and taking time to think, I was helping other people to do the same thing. And maybe I believe there are reasons for everything. And maybe even though I'm not really the corporate type, part of the reason that I ended up in a corporate environment is that this environment needs those type of qualities.
Yeah. It's like, what do you say? Compatible, but like you need both plus and minus to make the equation work.
Yeah.
And you are also attracted to the opposite nature.
Yeah.
As well, because you bring that, but also you get that, the hyper energy as well. Oh, very interesting. So, as part of being inner peace catalyst, like that's how you introduce yourself to your coaching world. Like, what's like one, like if I can ask you one takeaway, I feel the vibe naturally. I feel peaceful. But if I had to like take away like one, I don't know, exercise, value, gift, uh, by attending your workshops and talks and ceremonies, what do you think that would be?
What comes to mind straight away, and it sounds a bit cheesy, but just truly love yourself.
Wow.
And that can be a very small start. Like I'm trying to like myself more, to ending up with, wow, I'm my most favorite person in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, in a way, we are also like me being also skeptic, like yeah, what's the benefit in liking me? Then I'll be complacent with it. I'll become like, however I am, I'll not try to improve, or like I'll just like not move
Mm-hmm.
in my, like, metaphorically, if I truly, like myself so much. Like, what's your opinion on this?
Well, I think it's a huge misconception that
Mm,
people tend to have that
mm,
that our goals are driven um, scarcity or by force,
mm,
and that we need some kind of incentive to be ambitious,
mm.
and it has to come from from I don't know, anger almost.
Yeah.
um, and that's not the case, because when you love yourself, when you are satisfied with yourself, it doesn't mean that you don't have ambitions anymore, because
Mm,
it's in our nature, right? We evolved from people gathering fruits and seeds to where we are now, and it's not because all of us were driven by I don't know, by force to get
right.
here.
Like, to even if we don't force ourselves, we'll still grow. Like, that's the nature of evolution. That's what you
Yeah,
mean? That,
yeah,
like, my self-acceptance doesn't mean that I'll not move on or um, strive to be a better person.
no,
Is that like,
exactly, yeah.
and will that, how will that affect, people around me or my relationships?
Well, exactly. That's a great question, because I just had an image of, what if you want to become, the next CEO of the
Mm,
company that you
right.
work for, or high up in leadership? Would you want to do that elbowing everybody else out of your way, working 100 hours a week, ignoring your family, your friends, whatever?
Which is a very popular style, by the way.
Yeah. Or and and because you don't love and appreciate yourself, being harsh with yourself, and therefore also being harsh with your environment? Or would you rather be a person that wants to climb to the top because they feel they deserve it, and that, because they are valuable and they are worthy, um,
Mm,
and because you value yourself, you also value what environment you're in,
mm.
and so you're climbing to the top, and also lifting up others, and making sure that you balance your priorities, and that you do give your friends and family the time they deserve as well.
Wow.
So that's the difference to me.
Yeah. And like, you bring this message to the corporate. How's the reaction? Because I know, like, that's not the generic work style. Like, I'm still in the corporate and it's still very popular.
Yeah, I would say it depends on the person's level of self-acceptance, how they
Yeah.
respond to it.
So now you know your job is so important. Like, I can validate you that, like, what you're saying, the new style, the abundant style, is still, like, quite scarce in the world.
Hmm.
So your job is very important.
Yeah,
Yeah. Thank you.
thank you too.
um, Talking about self-exploration and, having deeper connect with yourself, which is like a bit about, again, coming to the topic, it's all about me, you know, knowing myself, being aware of myself, being mindful. Um, where do you think, like, the second person in our worlds, which is our relationship, the closest relationship, which is our parents, our partners, especially romantic partners when you're an adult, do you feel that they have an important role in this whole journey of self exploration and deeper inner connect?
Of course, yeah. We talked a little bit about authority figures already.
Mm-hmm.
So what I see in myself and around me as well is that a big part of people's, let's say, spiritual journey or journey to self-realization or self-discovery deals with their relationship to their parents, and what their parents have passed on to them that they might want to get rid of, for example.
Right.
So in that sense, those relationships are very important. And especially what you mentioned as well, a romantic relationship. I think this is the best mirror that you can get to, if you're willing to look into it. It's a perfect playground for self-development.
Right. So, like, if you would like to share, what's your own personal self-exploration that you had around this topic?
I had many.
Okay. Interesting.
Many insights. Wow. Don't know where to start, really. Actually, what comes up for me is that because I specifically mentioned mirror, is that I'm currently not with anyone, and I notice that I am missing somebody who can mirror me, who can mirror me to help me grow further.
Yeah.
And that as soon as I have this, and currently the mirrors are friends, but they are, of course, slightly less close to you.
Right.
And
There's still a filter. Yeah.
there's still a filter, and they might also be more concerned not to damage the relationship. So there's a less direct confrontation. One of the reasons that my relationship with my ex-partner ended last year is that I realized that I needed more of a mirror than I was allowing him to be. At first, I blamed him for it, for not for the imbalance in our relationship. I became the coach or the therapist, and he became the client almost. But later on, I realized I also wasn't allowing him to be on the same level. There things happened that caused the imbalance between us, and I just love coaching and being a therapist for people as well. So that was a natural role for me. But whenever there were times when he was the clearest mirror that I could ever have, I was saying to myself, and sometimes also to him, like, you cannot say this about me. It's not true, because you first need to do more work, and then I will listen to you.
Okay. In a way, you had put this is interesting dynamic, because in a way you had put yourself in a higher pedestal than him. So whatever he would get a chance to like mirror back, you would not accept it.
No.
Which in a way is also kind of a mirror, right? Like in a way that you are not accepting yourself, even if you get the insights, you are not processing it.
Yeah.
So like out of all the self-explorations, like insights that you found, like what was like the most I think you told like you ended your last relationship last year, and How was the journey before and after? Do you feel that you made the right decision? And what are the like self-exploratory insights that you got that you think like if I did that, I could have, managed the relationship, like I could have kept up. Did you have such insights?
Yeah, also many. The same way that my breakup with EY was slow, it felt like a breakup in a way too.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, this relationship breakup was also a slow process. Yeah, because we had a lot of parallels and a lot of things that worked really well, but at the same time, yeah, mainly because of the imbalance, we also both felt like we weren't, how to say, like we weren't living our highest potential. That sounds maybe very business-like for a relationship, but I don't know how else to put it. And what I realized is that this imbalance that was there, it's been part of my relationships for several editions.
Okay.
Several relationships. So what I learned is, because of some very deeply hidden beliefs that I had, that I think I have inherited from my mother line, is that I needed to be a pedestal higher than my partner, for for reasons of, for example, if the man is in a way dependent on me because I'm taking care of him, it means he stays. And that's something that I really learned after the breakup, and that was such a big lesson for me about life overall. Like I was somehow, and I didn't get to the root of this yet, and I might never get to the root of it, but somehow I convinced myself over the years that I needed to make people dependent on me to have them stay. Otherwise, I would be left alone.
Right. You mentioned also about the insecurities,
Yeah.
which is, by the way, in the collective. So I totally resonate with your story.
Yeah.
And also, you told me about your mom and the family being the more analytical science person and naturally having more respect towards that, which is also a collective thing.
Yeah.
Than the so-called spiritual side is always more valued. Like there are so many, it's multi-dimensional.
Yeah.
Challenge, shadow work.
Yeah.
So very interesting, because now you realize that I'm just trying to like deep dive,
Yeah.
like have the real essence from this, because what you said, I think it's very much valuable, and I can also relate to it, that being dependent, like being myself, being super independent and making other people dependent on me puts me in a safer place, makes me more secure, also then other people depend on me, and I can always be in the higher pedestal, and I can always be the boss in their life, and I can always be right, and which is very funny. We both are females, and it really relates to the toxic masculinity.
Yeah.
Doesn't it?
It does.
And because I totally relate with it.
Yeah.
I totally, not even just in relationships, like also in my work style and stuff. And I just, this word popped up in my mind, like this exactly why we don't like certain masculine characters, right?
Yeah.
And we embody them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're so right. And I had the same realization as I was talking, like, oh, I have such a trigger. So part of my shadow is
Yeah.
authority,
Yeah.
and exactly what you're saying now. It's toxic masculinity, which is in my shadow,
Yeah.
and here it is. Boom.
We are like, we are out there in the internet and also out there in our relationship, like, you are a man, you should not do this. This is because, see, I'm a female, I suffered generations, my parents and my mother line suffered, but in a way, um, since we see that as a higher or the more self-righteous or like more in a higher pedestal, we also embody them as females. And like, although like I endorse the whole thing that like, okay, we should be more like equal, like about this whole feminism thing, but like it's so filled with masculinity in me also.
Yeah.
So it's like really funny to realize that.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, wow. So so many. There are some things dropping like
Right?
like Tetris now in my head. Yeah, because also what happened quite frequently in the last years of my relationship is that as I started exploring more of my spiritual side, with shamanism, for example, I started to do training about femininity, about the divine feminine. And one of my ex partner's favorite ways of triggering me was saying, "Oh, you've done all this feminine work, but I don't see any result." And I would get so triggered. Um, but it's part of this whole masculinity shadow as well. Like I
Yeah.
was trying so hard to be more feminine because I've felt like too masculine for so long, and my partner knows exactly where to point his finger.
Yeah, yeah, like it's so fascinating. We are also like, I also want to be more feminine and like be more flowy and be less skeptic and rely on my intuition. But like I also approach it in a very methodical, structured, goal-oriented way, which kind of I'm doing right now also. Like I want to set a podcast to talk about it and structurally like that's why I like talking helps, I think, to like discover your own blind spots.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's about flowing. Yeah, interesting. You spoke about shamanism. Tell me more about it.
Yeah. It's something that I've started to explore also in the last few years. I love it very much because it's very nature based. So maybe for the people that have never heard about this is which I'm in a bubble now where I think everybody knows what shamanism is, but the word shaman comes from Siberia, I believe. And so originally shamanism was practiced in Siberia, and they were the elders of the tribe, the medicine men and women, who had special abilities to take care of the tribes. I don't know all the detail, but I can imagine that they also were able to, read the stars and predict
Psychic.
predict the rainfall and things like that. So they were the rest of the tribe would grant them with or believe they had special abilities. The Siberian, as humankind was spreading across the globe, the and they from Siberia they crossed the land to North America, or what is now North America, South America. so this way of living also started being implemented there with the, I guess many of us know the stereotypical Indians with their feathers and
the priests,
yeah,
like monks and priests.
yeah.
So yeah,
So, which we now, I mean, you're not allowed to say Indians anymore. Well,
yeah, yeah,
there's two types of Indians, of course, in that way, but like Native Americans.
yeah.
And shamanism, so it's now, you can find shamans across the world now because it has spread since several 100,000 years. But what it means to me is it's kind of a way of living that is close to nature